The turntable was in a windy place close to the sea, and if he was not on it just right, he put it out of balance and made it difficult to turn. Nobody wants me, Toby thought, and went unhappily to sleep. Next morning, the shed was flung open, and old Toby woke with a start to see his driver waving a piece of paper at him. "Don't be silly, don't be silly," puffed Edward. On the other side of the ditch, some little boys were chattering. It was a traction engine.
"Hello,"
said Edward.
"You're not broken and rusty. What are you doing here?" "I'm Trevor. They're going to break me up next week. My driver says I only need some paint, polish, and oil to be as good as new, but my owner says I'm old-fashioned. My owner would send us from farm to farm. We threshed corn, hauled logs, and did lots of other work. The children loved to see us. Oh, yes, I like children."
Edward set off for the station. Broken up, what a shame. Broken up, what a shame. Jem Cole came on Saturday.
"The Reverend is coming to see you, Trevor. Do you think he will?"
asked Trevor.
"He will when I've lit your fire and cleaned you up."
He knows that he is really useful, like his friend Edward, the Blue Engine. He had bad news.
"The vicar's been so busy that he forgot to put up the posters. Now no one will know about the party." "Well, I'm Oliver, and I'm with my brake van towed. We've run out of coal and have no more steam. Escaping. Scrap. It'll have to look, though, as if you're ready for scrap and I'm taking you away."
2. Everyone worked fast.
"No time to turn round. I'll run tender first. Come on."
But before they could clear the station, they were stopped.
"A Great Western engine and a brake van, too. You can't take these." "Aye, but they're all for us."
The foreman looked all over Oliver.
"We've had worse,"
replied Oliver, and they forged ahead. It was daylight when their journey ended. Oliver said goodbye and thank you, and Douglas puffed.
It was only the sounds of the lonely scrapyard. Diesels, silent and still, lined up on guard. "No, none. One. We have one." A small engine with a tall funnel stood sad and alone in the shadowy side. "Excuse me," said Rusty. "Do you like bluebells?" The engine looked startled. "Yes, bluebells are beautiful." "Then you're soon going to see lots of them because I'm getting you out of here." Everyone worked fast. Rusty's engineer agreed to be Stepney's fireman. So off they set. "Just down the line," replied Rusty. And they chuffered quickly away. "We've done it," whispered Rusty. "We're over the border and back on our own railway. Mission accomplished." When Rusty and the engine arrived in the valley, a big welcome awaited them. His driver was delighted. And my friend Rusty. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Rusty. Oliver had been to the works to be mended. Now Oliver was as good as new, but he was still worried about cars. "I'd rather not use them," he puffed to himself.
He collected metal from the foundry Bluebells forever had been worked by the little engines, and their lines were still in place. But now everything was very rusty and overgrown. Sir Topham Hatt was most impressed, but Toby was rather scared. Thomas and Percy had to take some empty freight cars to the scrap yards. In a siding, they saw an old coach, and she set off happily for her new home.
Yeah, who wants to work a livelong day anyway? There he is. Come in, come in. in and join the party, Splodge. What? Correction. Join the party that's over. Gone. Like the lost engine and the buffers that lead to her. It's time to finally put Twinkle Toes' lights out.
I've got to delay him. I've got to distract him.
Push that! Get back here!
Good show.
Whatever it is, responsible, reliable, really useful. I will be!
The twins were so cross they refused to speak to each other for the rest of the day. Buffers. Look out! Duck shouted, but it was too late. Donald knew he was right. He finally pulled his twin gently back onto the tracks. So Duck and Percy left. The chains felt like ghost fingers and set off an old steam whistle. The ghost whistle! Line passes through a junction next to a spooky old quarry mine. One morning, Percy was cheerfully collecting coal cars from the smelter. Percy didn't want to fall for their tricks again. Little green piggy in the middle, with coal cars in front of him and coal cars behind. Percy had to go slow. The next day, James arrived at the smelter. Yes, sir, Bert chimed greasily. James cheerfully backed up to his freight cars. He was certain he had fooled Harry and Bert, but he was wrong. Just like Percy, jeered Bert. When Sir Topham Hatt heard the news, he sent Percy to fetch James. This made Percy happy. All the freight cars to the docks.
He arrived safe and sound, and pleased that the dirty work was done. Fergus and his driver arrived at the smelters. Just then, the scrap diesels arrived. Hello! His driver was scared too. Come on, Fergus, we're going to escape. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting. To hear tales of ghostly engines and scary steam trains. But when they got to the smelter's yard, it was very spooky. Slowly through the piles of jagged steel and twisted scrap. Grew hotter, and the smoke grew thicker. Thomas and Emily ghostly shadows and fizzing sparks. And they both rolled slowly into the smelting shed. Thomas thought Emily was the ghost, and he raced out of the smelting shed. Thomas was right behind them, and Emily was right behind Thomas. They saw something that was very, very frightening. It was Diesel 10. Diesel 10 was big, and he had a crunching, crushing claw, and they raced away. Henry had to stay at the smelter's yard. I don't like it here, moaned Henry. If I break down, they might scrap me by mistake. But Percy had the worst dream of all. Thomas wanted to tell Diesel 10 about the meeting. And he puffed quickly away. He was sure Diesel 10 would never work with the Steamies anyway.
It was overgrown, rusty and very old. Station covered in ivy. I wonder what else I'll find, he wished. Thomas chuffed to a halt. Thomas had never seen such an amazing sight. It must have been a very large town, he cried. This was the main town. It was called Great Waterton, and everyone thought the town of Great Waterton was lost forever.
Gordon puffed slowly into the smelter's yard. And his wheels clickety-clacked without a cheer or a clap along the way. First, Rosie collected Rocky. Then she pulled him as quickly as she could.
I've never seen anything like this before.
Thomas looked for a yellow engine. There were lots of engine parts, but none of them were yellow.
Wait! Come back! I really hope...
Scrap! Douglas shivered.